Constellation with two-dimensional signal constellation. I'm Jihad Hamamre from Antalya University, coming here to present my latest research on this domain. So basically, before we talk about the basic concept of OFDM-Subcarrier power modulation, let's have a look at the state of the art in the 5G technology and the related areas. Usually, what motivates us to develop new technologies is basically the emergence of new applications. These applications give us some requirements that we need to meet and cope up with. And one of the key requirements, as you know, in 5G, we have three different basic use cases: enhanced mobile broadband communication, massive machine type communication, ultra-reliable low latency communication. So basically, the first class of these services need extremely high spectral efficiency to provide high data rate services for applications like augmented reality and virtual reality and real video communication systems. So for that reasons, you need new techniques, new methods, new ways in order to achieve that demand. So one of the methods to achieve that is to use cell densification. Install more cells, more base stations, so that you increase the capacity, the density of your network, and that's why you increase the capacity in general, and that you can serve more users with the required data rates. Another solution can be by using more spectrum, which is related to millimeter wave communication system. But the problem with that, you need to pay this spectrum, you need to pay money for that, and it's really costly. And also, it has some issues in terms of propagation. It cannot penetrate through walls, and it has some issues, some other issues. So what's the solution? An intelligent solution might be to increase the spectral efficiency in an efficient manner by coming up with new techniques. To achieve that, there have been a huge amount of research on enhancing the spectral efficiency of OFDM system. As you know, OFDM is the technology that has been used in Wi-Fi, 3G, in 4G, Wi-Fi, 5G, and some other technologies. But the problem with OFDM that it has some issues related to peak to average power ratio, out of band emission, and this can reduce its spectral efficiency. To improve its spectral efficiency more, we introduced some technique to solve these things. But there has been a new dimension, a new research effort to introduce a third dimension in order to increase the amount of data rate we can send over the wireless channel. Among these solutions, we can mention index modulation OFDM, number modulation OFDM. In this case, you can send more data by the indices of the subcarriers, not only by the in-phase and the quadrature component of the constellation diagram. This is like a third dimension to send your data, which increases your spectral efficiency. A new technique which we proposed in this domain called orthogonal frequency division multiplexing with subcarrier power modulation. The problem with the previous techniques that you are right, you can introduce third dimension to send your data, but the problem, since you are using the indices, that you must deactivate some of these subcarriers. Since you are deactivating some of these subcarriers, you lose the data that you could have used it over these subcarriers, because you are no longer using it to send QAM symbols. However, in our proposed technique that we have recently introduced, we introduced a scheme where you can use all the subcarriers, also send additional data bits by varying the power of each subcarriers. So each subcarrier carries the QAM symbol, and the variation in the power of each subcarrier carries additional data that can send for your transmitter. So this was the motivation of the scheme we proposed recently, and we found after extensive simulations and performance analysis, we found that it has the following merits. It can double the spectral efficiency, like in-band full duplex, like NOMA, like other schemes. It can not only double, but also it can save half of your power, which is really significantly important, specifically for Internet of Things application, because your Internet of Things device is battery limited and doesn't like too much complexities. For the same reason, since you are, as you can see here in this picture, you are not using half of the spectrum while you are transmitting the same amount of data. And also, since you are using small number of subcarriers, this translates to lower size in the I50, and thus reduces the complexity. And also, since shorter size of I50 also reduces to lower latency. And this is very effective and very efficient for your computer. So we have all these merits and advantages. That's why this motivates us to carry on doing research and investigation, and we try to improve it and enhance it more. However, there is one question that remained in our study, which is all the other schemes which are competitive to the recently proposed scheme, OFDM-Subcarrier power modulation, they performed well when they are paired with lower order modulation, like BPSK. But when you use higher order modulation, like EQUAM and 16 EQUAM and 64, their performance degrades suddenly and becomes the spectral efficiency very bad. So we want to check our method, proposed in this paper, to check and see, does our method really maintain its spectral efficiency merit when you pair it with high order modulation? Does it still provide doubling the spectral efficiency and saving half the power and all these merits? So this was the purpose. And if we prove that, then we will prove that this technique is much better than all the other competitive techniques like index modulation and number modulation that were proposed in the literature and gained too much attention. So this is what we did. And basically, to achieve that, we introduced example of pairing OFDM-Subcarrier power modulation with two-dimensional modulation like called QPSK. In the original case, if you can see here, sending QPSK then carries 1 bit. While in our scheme, the in-phase component carries these 6 data symbols only in half the bandwidth and also half the power. And the quadrature component of the I50 process, instead of being similar to the conventional OFDM system, it becomes similar to this system, which sends the same amount of data while using half the bandwidth, half the power, half latency, and half I50 complexity. So these are the merits. So now turn to the structure. These are the key merits of the proposed scheme. Now to the structure of the proposed OFDM-Subcarrier power modulation at the transmitter and receiver. At the transmitter, the system doesn't introduce too much complexity. At the receiver, you just split your bits into 2 parts, 2 streams. One, you take it and modulate it conventionally using the QPSK, and the other stream of bits, you use it to just change the power level of your subcarrier. If it is 0, low power, if it is 1, high power. And then you take it to the conventional OFDM system, I50, CB, digital to analog, and to antenna, RF, and then to the channel. At the receiver, the detection process is very easy. You just take the subcarriers, do conventional QPSK demodulation, and then from the power level of each subcarrier also, you can detect the data that was encoded to the power. So to prove that and to show that, we performed simulation analysis as well as mathematical analysis, and we came up with the following results. The conventional scheme, if you can look at the right side part of this slide, the conventional scheme like OFDM, they have spectral efficiency. When you pair OFDM with QPSK, the maximum spectral efficiency you can get 2 bits per second per subcarrier. While in our scheme, the maximum spectral efficiency is 4 bits per second per subcarrier, per each subcarrier, while you are saving half the bandwidth, reducing latency and this. However, we found that this comes at some loss. The loss is in the bit error rate. While the OFDM performance is, the bit error rate of the OFDM performance is shown in the green curve, the performance of the proposed scheme without doing any enhancement to it, it looks like this, which is a little bit not very competitive in terms of bit error rate. Although we achieved here too much gain, but we had some loss here. To reduce this loss, what did we do? We said, since we are saving half of the power, look with me here. Here I'm saving half of the power because half of the spectrum I'm not using it. Since I'm not using it, this means I'm not transmitting anything. I could utilize it for something else. and I can reallocate this power to these subcarriers. If I do this, then I will be able to increase the power of each subcarrier, and accordingly I can get much better bit error rate. Now also we improved it more by using receive diversity and other schemes. Now one might ask me and say, okay, you are introducing this scheme and you are saying it can achieve 4 bit per second per subcarrier, but also OFDM with 16 equam can achieve the same 4 bit per second per subcarrier. So why don't you compare with that? We received this question and they have the same power, the same spectral efficiency, and when we simulated that, we found out that our scheme, which is shown in blue, performs better than OFDM 16 equam at lowest SNRs, but at high SNRs they have the same spectral efficiency, while it gives us about 2 to 3 dB gain compared to OFDM 16 equam. So in all the comparisons, we are somehow beating the conventional schemes. So this is really very significant modulation scheme that can really make its way to future communication system, as it has many merits and many advantages, as I just mentioned, in terms of doubling the spectral efficiency, reducing latency, reducing complexity, and saving the power, which is very good for Internet of Things devices that require extra high data rate transmission. So OFDM, in summary, OFDM-Subcarrier modulation has shown once again to be a system which could be considered for future adoption, as it offers spectral efficiency gain, transmission power and delay reduction, flexibility and potential complexity reduction. OFDM an ideal candidate for Internet of Things applications also due to these merits and advantages. OFDM-Subcarrier power modulation uniquely characterized by being the only scheme which introduces a third dimension in which all the subcarriers you can use them and send over them data normally. So, and with this I conclude and finish my presentation and welcome any questions or comments on what I have just presented. Thank you very much for your attention.
There's one question, as usual.
Okay.
Actually, this is not actually my area.
Communication.
Yes, but I have to ask you because it sounds too good to be true, right? Because you're doubling it.
Yeah.
So can you, in all honesty, he's recording, but that's okay, we won't tell anyone. If there is really a downside to this.
A downside?
Yes, besides those, the arrays and where can it go wrong? What could go wrong? If, for example, somehow this is picked up by the manufacturer or someone else, what do you foresee that might be a problem?
Yeah, as I just explained in the lecture, in the presentation, I said that we are achieving these gains at some loss in the bit error rate. However, we can overcome this loss.
Besides those ones?
Beside those ones, I think that what might demotivate the researchers from adopting it is because maybe there are some other competitive schemes to it, but still the good thing about that it can introduce these gains with minimal complexity at the receiver side. Since this is very important thing for Internet of Things application, because all of us, we know that Internet of Things has limited power, limited memory, limited CPU. You don't want to consume too much power, too much energy. That's why when you put it in the context of Internet of Things, it's going to be somehow very competitive.
I hope it does.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to